Hello everyone. My name is Suhyun and I currently work at Hanbuk Elementary School in Gwangmyeong. I'm really nervous now. I imagined presenting here so many times while I was preparing, but then I'm nervous like 1,000 times more than I expected. So just tell you my story as if I was talking to my friends. I took the Iiettp in 2012, and it was one of the most wonderful experiences I have had throughout my teaching career. There are many reasons why, but today I'm going to talk about what I learned, especially about ICC, which stands for, do you remember this teacher? It stands for Intercultural Communication, and it was one of the classes from the training course. The course was basically about the role of culture in Korean English classrooms. It was divided into two different parts. One was about culture and language, and the other was about teaching culture. So we had a chance to go over topics from the basic concept of culture and also about how to actually teach culture. And among all the topics, one idea that I learned around this time 2 years ago was a paradigm shift in how I looked at English education. That was the concept of English as an international language. I knew EFL or ESL, but I had never heard of EIL or ELF. I remember that it was a bit shocking to me that there were different perspectives on English language. Because for a long time, since middle school, as an English learner, my goal was to become like a native speaker. And as an English teacher, my goal was to make my students become like native speakers. So, when I was asked, how can we say Konglish is wrong if we can communicate through it with people from other countries? I didn't know what to say. And that was the start of my change, from English to Englishes. As I learned more about EIL, I got to know the importance of cultural education in the English education system, and also about multicultural awareness as an English teacher. Actually, even before Iiettp, I was always interested in multiculturalism, but I didn't really think about teaching it in my classroom. Right after Iiettp, I went back to graduate school and started writing my thesis. Before Iiettp, I was thinking of a purpose-based topic for my thesis, but I decided to write about cultural education while I'm taking the course. As a result, the topic of my thesis was an analysis of elementary English textbooks from the perspective of multicultural education. In my research, I analyzed a total of 12 elementary English textbooks from grade 3 to grade 6. These are the books. Before I wrote my thesis, I expected those books wouldn't be that multicultural. And the results were, well, can you guess? Okay, first, when it came to content subject matter, domestic cultural identity did appear. As you can see here in the script, Namsu is going to visit his grandparents, and he's also talking about 청학동 and Paduk. cultural diversity was shown in different, separate sections from the main content areas, such as Hello World, Around the World, and The World and Me. This means that the main dialogues in the textbooks didn't tend to include cultural diversity. Second, many countries were mentioned in the textbooks. Can you guess which country appeared most frequently? You say, Korea. Yeah. However, except for some countries like Korea, America, England, and China, most countries were only briefly mentioned. Most disappointingly, countries with strong multicultural ties to Korea, like Vietnam and Thailand, were rarely mentioned. Third, in terms of the frequency of certain races, the proportion of white and East Asian people within the stories was really high. As you can see here, most of them are white and East Asian students, except for Malik. He's from India. Actually, these are main characters from one English textbook. So even though Malik is one of the main characters in this textbook, he showed up only a few times. When I reviewed these findings, I thought, why not make our own multicultural English textbooks? In my thesis, I suggested project-based learning to have my students experience different cultures. I wanted to try it in my classes, so I told my 5th grade students about the results of my thesis. And they seemed pretty interested because it was about their books. I tried to make them think they could make better multicultural textbooks, and I actually had them create their own. We did it chapter by chapter at the end of each unit as a group project. I gave them a name of a continent, taking turns, and I had them choose any country that they were interested in. Once they had chosen, they had to search for cultural information about the country for their homework. I actually let them use their smartphones in class as well when they wanted to further research. And in class, they were talking about the design and they were actually making it. I tried my best to help them combine language and culture. Now, let me show you some of my students' work. It's really fun. This is one page from chapter 1. How's it going? They chose Bulgaria. As you can see here, instead of how's it going, they wrote Kakubobi, which means how are you in Bulgarian. The students level in this group was pretty low, so I let them write the words in Korean. And this is one page from chapter 14. Hello, I'm from Australia. As you can see here, they changed the title into Hello, I'm from Macedonia. I honestly didn't know Macedonia existed. Sometimes my students wanted to learn about really unfamiliar countries. I actually learned about those countries a lot through this project. It was really fun. My students put a woman wearing traditional Macedonian clothes and set her as one of the main characters in this chapter. This is also from chapter 14 by another group. They chose Micronesia. And this is a picture of the active reading that they changed. As you can see here, They changed some lines, some words. I'm from Micronesia, but I live in Korea now. I think this kind of activity could be a really good controlled writing activity for low-level students because they were not afraid of making mistakes, and they learned to write sentences really naturally. This is a page from chapter 11. What a beautiful palace. They changed the words of the song. Actually, they had fun changing the words, but it was pretty funny because afterwards they made this chapter. They actually tried to sing the song, and they found it really difficult because of the words. Notre Dame Cathedral, Luxembourg were hard to say. At the end of the year, each group completed one multicultural English textbook using the chapters they made. Each student had a chance to get to learn about 15 different countries, a lot more, because we had 15 chapters. Also, they had a chance to use the English they learned. I actually saw them getting better at designing the chapters and also adapting the texts to show the cultural information about the country they chose. I think my students got to know a lot about different cultures, and they also became more interested in them through this project. Plus, they became really comfortable using English. In ICC class, we learned about how to teach culture using the cultural knowings framework. Do you remember this? Hana? Knowing about, knowing how, knowing why, and knowing oneself. There are 4 different stages. And I reflected on the textbook making project based on this framework. And I realized that I didn't really give enough chances to my students to understand different cultures more deeply because I went through knowing about and knowing how, but I didn't get to the stages of knowing why and knowing oneself. As an excuse for that, we didn't have enough time. I remember that I said, I'll give you only one more minute, 10 times in a class, because we had to finish making the chapters within like 40 minutes. I think our students see the world through our eyes most of the times. I hope the change of my perspective of singing English and cultural education will also affect my students' perspective of seeing the world differently. Thank you so much.